Hello friends, David Vos here. Hope you're having a great day. As you can see, it's really pretty here in Oklahoma today. It was really warm last night. I can't believe how warm it is here in the middle of winter. Today it's a little cooler, but it's nice. Well, I wanted to get back into the subject we were talking about the other day, a couple of videos ago, about gravity and now hang on. A lot of you are probably going to click off because you're just thinking that's boring. You know, I'm going to try to make it a lot less boring than you think. But and the reason that I am asking you to listen to this video, watch the whole thing, is because it's very important. You see, there's a lot of things that we believe that's not true. We don't have some of the facts as to who we are. We're walking around kind of like animals. They don't know where they're at, what they're doing. They're stuck in some kind of program where they need to go out and eat, find shelter, keep warm, protect themselves. They're stuck in instinctual modes. Well, that's their level of evolution, but human beings were capable of knowledge. And this is what the Bible's about. This is what the ancient esoteric wisdom, all the ancient, philosophers. I keep telling in every one of my videos, I keep talking about how the Aristotle and the Plato and the Pythagoras philosophers got their information from the priesthood in Egypt. They studied astronomy because that's what those pyramids are doing. They're looking up at the stars. They're shafts that point to certain stars. They weren't just calendars to find out what time of the year to plant, but they were astronomical observations, and they had a lot of information about the sky and the stars and the gods. And so there was this time of mankind's history that we call the Dark Ages. All right. Well, the reason it was called the Dark Ages, I was like, who comes up with these words? The Enlightenment era, right? Somebody knows what's going on, right? They named it appropriately. And it's kind of funny because they didn't know that they were teaching darkness. How would they have known to name that age the Dark Age? They knew what they were doing. As I said in last couple videos, they wear black robes for a reason. They have black and white checkered linoleum or tile. It's not linoleum, but in the Vatican, they have it in courthouses. They have it in Masonic halls. They had it in the movie The Joker when he went to go get Thomas Wayne because he was a billionaire, one of the elite, and he lived in this huge building, and it had black and white checkered tile. You see, cop cars are black and white. We could go on and on because it's the God of the Old Testament. There's the Old Covenant. There's the New Covenant. There's the carnal. There's the spiritual. If you have a physical body, you also have a spiritual one. The universe has these two things. And so that's what the Old Testament God, that's how he describes himself. He says, I am God, and I create light and I create darkness. I create good and I create evil. All right. How do you square that with the New Testament God? You see, there's two gods there in the New Testament. Jesus said, your God, your Father, is the devil. My Father's above, your Father's beneath. And he says, my Father is love. My Father is light, and there is no darkness in him. See, your Father has good and evil. But my Father cannot be tempted with evil, neither can he tempt any man with evil. Because my Father is above. You've never seen him or heard his voice. Now, all of the elders of Israel, excuse me, they heard And they sat down and had a meal with Yahweh in the Old Testament. And they fellowshiped. It says Moses saw him excuse me, face to face. And the elders saw him and they heard his voice. The entire congregation of Israel, all the Israelites down at the base of the mountain, they heard his voice, the 10 words. And we say 10 commandments, but in the Old Testament it calls them the 10 words in the book of Exodus. And Jesus was referring to that when he said, you've never heard my Father. You heard your God. You heard him. You heard the 10 words. I hear a lot of, there's a belief going around, it's a popular thing now, where people are going back to the holy days and they're starting to pronounce the names correctly according to the Hebrew and stuff like this. The sacred names movement, if you want to call it that, or other different names that they have. And they're very, and then some of them want to keep all the laws, but they can't really do that because they know they can't go out and sacrifice things and keep slaves and, you know, beat women and torture them and kill them. And they know they can't keep all the laws. See, so they try to, well, let's, you know, the Seventh-day Adventists had an idea that, come up with an idea that they would just keep the first 10. Those were the important ones. You keep those, the first 10, because those were the 10 words that came right out of the mouth of God. What they don't understand is that's not our Father in heaven. You've never heard my Father. If you've never heard my Father, Jesus said, and if Jesus is telling the truth, because he is the truth and the light and the life, and he said you've never heard my Father's from above, yours is from beneath, don't you see? Those 10 words that came out of the mouth of God cannot be his Father. So, I start off with this because I want you to understand that this is going to be very important to understand. We have so many different thoughts going on in our mind. And we don't realize who we are, why we have this government here, the lower nature and the higher nature. We don't understand our history. We don't know. Nowadays, you've got people that are saying, well, I don't even know if I believe in the scientists. I mean, it's gotten so bad, we don't believe anything they say. And we shouldn't. We should do research for ourselves. We were talking about how Sir Isaac Newton, he was a scientist, is what we call him, but actually he was an esoteric believer. He studied the ancient Egyptian literature. He studied the Book of Thoth and the Emerald Tablets. He translated the Emerald Tablets. He studied the Bible, and especially the Book of Daniel. He had his ideas about when the end of the age would come and Christ would return. And he spent more time studying all of that than anything else. In fact, he has more writings on spiritual information than any science information. Even though he is the one who gave us most, if not all, of the laws of physics that we use today. Very intelligent. He invented calculus. But Galileo and Copernicus and Ptolemy and all these ancient individuals, astronomers and philosophers and scientists, they all came from the tradition of that ancient priesthood. We're getting that confused today. We're thinking that what's happening is that we don't understand that there is science and truth, and then there is lies. There is the law that was given by Moses is a bondage and a curse. It's the lower nature of this world, the material part. Then there's that spiritual part. So the Bible is broken up into the same as above, so below, just as the universe is. So we have the solar system that mimics the body, and that mimics the entire galaxy, and that mimics the universe. As above, so below. We have macrocosms and microcosms. The little atom takes the same type of form, in a sense, the same basic principles to describe atoms as you can use that to describe solar systems, a sun or a star with planets running around it. And that is working. It's the same thing that is the principle behind the galaxy itself and the universe beyond. Everything works that way. We talked about this the other day. Now, please stay tuned because it's going to help you. I'm going to try to talk very clearly, and we're trying to go very step by step so that we can understand the universe around us, who we are, where we are. That's the point. We need, in all of my videos, what I'm trying to get at is like, I could care less about science or really. I mean, I love science, but there's a reason for that. See, math, I don't want to go learn math or algebra or take a course in German or Spanish or, become a lawyer. Why would we care about the law? It's only going to do you good if you're in a world where there's law. Well, I don't want to be in this world. I don't want to try cases based on this arbitrary law. It's not, in all of eternity, we're going to forget about this, and it won't be information you need for your progress. Okay, you might want to stop off and figure out why the law came about. That's helpful. But what we're trying to get into is the principles that is going to help us understand ourselves. Know thyself, oh man. This is the axiom that they've been using since Aristotle and Pythagoras. To know thyself is all that's important. It's the same teaching that we have in Buddhism. The New Testament and the Old Testament is both about an I am. Yahweh means I am. But he says, I am God and there is none else. I am vengeance. I am jealous. That is my name. But the New Testament says that love does not get jealous. Love does not get puffed up. It's not proud. Right? So how is it that the Old Testament God who is jealous, he says, that is my name. How could that have anything to do with our Father in heaven? It can't. You see, he's the God of vengeance. Vengeance is mine. But our Father says, there is no darkness in him. He's only light. So we get the spiritual, we get the physical. And we got to understand the physical just so that we understand that's not us. That's not the part we're going after. We're following after the spirit. We know no man after the flesh anymore. So we got to understand, what is the flesh? What does it have to do with my mind, my thinking? How can I think correctly? How can I overcome? Have dominion over the world? The goal, as we say, is to achieve immortality, eternal bliss, eternal happiness. You understand, in the East they call it bliss. Do you understand that's the same as blessing? And in English, that would mean happiness, eternal happiness. Blessing is to make someone happy. That's what that word means in Hebrew. When you give a blessing, you're making somebody happy. So we got the negative, we get the positive. We're going to understand what negative and positive is by the end of these series of videos that we're going to be doing. We're going to understand what science is, because we have to understand that it's the same thing, same principles that we're operating on here. That's how matter is formed. The universe is formed through matter. So you could take 1,000 years and study all the philosophers, because remember, all that ancient knowledge was written down, and the ancient priests understood much of this knowledge. But all of our progress was lost in the Dark Ages, as we said, because the Catholic Church burned the libraries, killed all the wizards, or the wise men, killed all the witches, which is the wise women, and burned all their books, and banned the truth. And then they put it all down in 66 books. That means it's imperfect, 6. They knew that it did not have all that you needed to know. They knew that they veiled the truth and put it in symbols. So we've got to crack the symbols. The same people that were writing the Bible are making the movies today. You go watch a movie like Batman, you're listening to Holy Writ. Those of you who think you can be saved by reading words on a book, out of a book, that somehow that is your salvation, that the book itself is holy. Ain't no book that's holy. The words, the meaning is holy, if you know the meaning, if you are wise. That he who counts the number of the beast, let him be wise. It's the number of a man. See, no one can understand or calculate these things unless they're wise. So, obviously, it requires a type of wisdom that we haven't even begun to acquire. And the reason for that is we've been in the dark ages because we had all of our knowledge taken away from us. Why do you suppose that is? Why did they burn all those books and take that away from us? Because they know that we will become like God. If we partake of knowledge, as Adam and Eve did, our eyes will be opened and we'll become like God. So it's very important that they're, remember the Old Testament's about slavery. Ye who want to be under the law, Paul says, do you not know it's about slavery? Bondage. It's a marriage contract. Till death do you part. It's a bond paper. It's a birth certificate. It's a driver's license. You are allowed to do what they allow you to do. If you can get a permit, if you can get permission. You're a slave. And this is the problem. And this is what we're trying to overcome. Because we're going to find out that it's all really just deception. The devil's really just a liar. He's a murderer. And though it may seem like an impossible, complex, impossible problem, working our way through the maze of this world and becoming free and becoming immortal, it's not. In all of my videos, I'm trying to show that there is a real truth, that there is a way out, and it can be done by any one of you, and it will be done. We will all do it. We will all achieve eternal life, according to the scriptures. So we got to understand this. We talked about gravity. We talked about what is gravity. We talked about Newton, who had this formula. But what did Newton tell us about gravity? Did he tell us what gravity was? No. And this is, God love him. I love Newton. He was the most amazing person. There's a few people in this world that have been, right up there. We got, these great ones that came along and taught the world so much. I mean, think about it. We're going by Newton's laws of physics to this day. The way we use it to build skyscrapers and bridges. They're using it in their airplanes and cars to make all of this technology. It works. If you don't believe that science is really true, how would they be able to put satellites in the air? You say, well, I don't believe there's any satellites in the air. Well, then what's Google? What is GPS? Trust me, it's there. They've been building it since the end of World War II to enslave us. It's real. It's science. We talked about Newton's first law, which was whatever's going in a direction will continue in the same direction and the same speed for all eternity. It will just keep going at the same speed, the same velocity, in the same direction forever and ever. Well, why does it? That's not true because, things going around and around, bumping into each other. That's it. Except when acted upon by another force. So you have a lot of forces and they're acting upon each other. And you've got to understand what these forces are. Why, Dave? Why do we need to know this? Because you are the force. You must understand yourself. May the force be with you, my son. You must understand the force. Say, well, Yogi or Yoda, and Luke Skywalker, they were the masters. I can't do that. Yes, you can. It is not that hard. But the first thing you got to do is find out all the lies that you were told. Because you're being redirected. You've got a program inside you that's making you fail every day. You're operating already on all these principles. You're already manifesting things into your life. What we're going to find out is that you are the universe itself is not physical. There isn't any reality to the time and space. There's no particles. There's no physical earth. There is no law of Moses. There is no carnal commandments. There is no carnal nature. It's only an illusion. What the universe is, and as time went on, past the Dark Ages, we went into the Age of Enlightenment, and we got brighter and brighter. Some scientists came along that got really deep into stuff, and we got Newton, then time went on, we had Einstein. Now Einstein, what did he do for us? Well, he tweaked this theory of gravity a little bit. A lot. But it's both Newton and Einstein did not tell us what gravity was. All they did was give us a formula to measure it. So we know something's going on. There's a force. You can measure it. It's like, you see a car going down the road. And somebody says, okay, see, that's speed. You say, okay. So speed is a car going down the road? No. It's motion. Here. See this? It was at this point at 1 o'clock. It's over at point B at 2 o'clock. We're going to measure the time that it takes to get from point A. Now that's speed. Okay, that's a measurement. But you still haven't explained to me why that thing is moving. All you've told me is that there is a force, there is something happening, and we're going to measure it, and so we know it's happening. But neither Einstein nor Newton told us what gravity actually was. What is that force? Why is it happening? And that's what we're going to talk about today, because it's very central to understanding who you are, how your world is being manifested right before your eyes. So when you can fully grasp all of these principles, the laws of physics, you'll realize that there is no physics. It's really just the laws of your own mind. I'm going to tell you what this force of gravity is. I mean, it's a force, okay? Boom, done, right? No. We're going to talk about a car. In order to explain that to you, I'd have to say, well, the car has wheels that are round. There is an axle. There is a gear. And I could go into it really deep and we could talk about how the gears work and all that, but we don't need to do that. We just, if you know kind of what a gear is, people explain that, well, it has teeth and it when it turns the gear, it'll turn the axle and that'll turn the tires and that'll make it go down the road. I mean, we could go real deep, but most of us understand sort of vague principles of why tires revolve. But what we want to know is what's making the tires go around. Well, you say, well, there's a motor. Well, what's a motor, Dave? Well, a motor is a combustible engine. So inside the engine, there are some cylinders. And inside the cylinders is a piston. There's an explosion. We're going to use gasoline to make we're going to drop a little bit of gas in the bottom of the chamber of the piston chamber in the cylinder. It's going to make an explosion. That's going to be so airtight that it's going to push the piston up. And we're going to have somewhere between 2, 4, 8 cylinders, depending on how many horsepower and how this and that and the other thing. And all right, so it pushes one cylinder up and the other one goes down. The one next to that goes halfway up. Well, as each cylinder goes up and then back down, it's spinning a shaft. The shaft has a gear, goes into the transmission. You put it in different gear, get different ratios, so you can go, faster or slower, pull a different weight. But the basic idea is that the engine, this combustible engine, is spinning a shaft, goes into the gearbox and spins the axle and spins the tire. Now you know what that force is making that car go down the road. Well, you knew that. But I explained it because I want to show you how difficult it can be to explain something that you're looking at. Now, I wouldn't call that a law. That's not a law. It's not a law that every piece of, metal that got a 49 and a stripe on the back, and it's, you know, the Dukes of Hazzard drives it, it somehow is always going to be speed. Maybe they got the thing parked. There's no law there. All you're doing is describing their car and how it goes from point A to point B. There's no law. We haven't described any laws. Now, there is laws involved, right? Friction and, you know, locomotion, velocity, and all kinds of laws. So, I think it's interesting that Newton gave us a formula to measure gravity, but he never told us what it was. Neither did Einstein. The only difference is that Newton measured mass, and he found out that depending on the mass, squared by the distance of the other object that's near you, because he said that objects gravitate towards each other. All objects are attracting. Well, it may be true, most objects may be attracting in the universe. But if you didn't know why, you'd just think that was some kind of law. But it's not really a law. It doesn't explain why anything attracts other things. Like they call that, to this day, you got books about it, the law of attraction. That's not a real law. You know, I mean, in a sense, there's some aspects of it that could kind of get into laws, like certain chemical compounds repel other chemical compounds, it's like that. But there's a reason why. You can't just say, oh, well, you know, it's just a law that things attract. That's not a law. That's just an observation. Why do things attract? You need to know this, because you need to attract the things that you want in life and get rid of the things you don't. So you really need to understand this. So stay tuned, because we got to understand this. All right. So Einstein had another formula based on light. He said light is a constant. All right. So he did a lot more than explain what gravity was. He explained the universe in a little higher, you know, like he had discovered that light traveled at 186,000 miles per second. That was a constant. And then he found out that light would continue on in the same direction, just like Newton, and never slow down and never stop until acted upon by another force. Oh, what was that force? Well, mass. Same thing. What Einstein was doing is explaining how, giving us a formula of how light is going to get slowed down and bend and warp. It's going to go fast until it reaches mass. If a planet has a certain amount of mass, it's going to pull the light in and bend the light. Okay. Well, that's a little different than Newton, because Newton wasn't talking about light. Newton was just talking about this force of gravity. So they were both giving us a formula for something different. Neither one of them gave us the law of what gravity was at all. So we're going to find out what that is. What is the law? Well, the law is that anything that moves causes an opposite reaction. So yes, Newton did have the law. He just didn't really know what it was that was moving. He didn't know that the earth is like a big hurricane. It's a vortex. Now, when you see a hurricane on the earth, you see that pulling, sucking stuff up from the bottom and spitting stuff out at the top. There's some forces involved. And at the outer, you can imagine, you're looking at this big hurricane. Looks like it's just, it goes through a town, it'll blow trees over, and some of the things will fly up in the air and get sucked up inside the tornado or the hurricane. So there's a force sucking. We know why hurricanes exist. When you have a hot pocket of air. Remember, air rises. Well, see, a lot of these things are really, Einstein talked about this, relativity. It's not really rising. Heat doesn't really rise. Why would it rise? Why is that a law? That's not a law. Well, just heat rises. Why? I don't know. That's the law. No, it's not. That's an observation. Why does heat rise? Well, because wherever there is something, it's going to have warmth, because it's reality. It's something. It exists. And evidently it exists by virtue of the fact that something around it doesn't. That's why we have ones and zeros in math, but we're not getting into that at the moment. So everything exists by virtue of something that doesn't exist. In other words, I see that that's a square. Well, how do you know it's a square? Because we call it a square as opposed to this thing over here is a circle, right? So something that exists a certain way exists by virtue of something that it's not. It is something by virtue of what it's not, right? Like a whole is not a half, or an up is not a down. See, up is up by virtue of the fact that it's not down. You know, so that's how we describe things. That's how we understand things. So something out there in the universe that starts to move or starts to be something, it has a force. Well, now it's somewhere at some point. We have to describe it somewhere. We have to conceive of it as, okay, this thing. Now around the thing, since it's a force, well, what is a force? It's movement. We've talked about that. It's law. The law says that a force is going to go in a direction and continue in that same direction until acted upon by another force. That's a law. So anything that's acting, moving, is going to have some force. Well, we have a force. It says that we have a law that says if something's creating a pressure, it's going to expand outward in equal proportion all around it in a ball. If there's no force acting upon it around its edges, right? It's just in a vacuum. There's this little, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, in a place where there's nothing, no air, nothing. It's a vacuum. And somewhere in the middle, there's a little force for some reason. There's something moving. We're going to explain why there is something there. I mean, this gets really complicated, but just for a moment, imagine something being there. So it's there. By virtue of being there, it's something. It's got some quality. Whether it's moving, it's hot, it's bright, it's got to have some quality. Now, if it's bright, it's got light. What does light do? It shines. It goes out in all directions. It's a vibration that goes out like a ripple on the water. Put a pebble in the water and the ripples go out in a perfect circle. But in space, it goes out in all directions, and these vibrations go out in a round sphere. So anything that is force causes motion, causes heat. Now, why is it some things cause motion, some heat, some this, some that? Because these are all various levels of vibration. The highest vibration is light itself. Light is constant, according to Einstein. It goes 186,000 miles per second. It never slows down. It never stops. It's constant. Nothing goes faster, because that's just flat. Because really, remember, there's no time and space in reality. But I know I shouldn't probably put that in there at that point. I don't want to confuse you. But the point is that in our little concept of what the universe is with time and space, we look out there and we see this little central sun, which is very bright, and it's shining light all around it. Well, so the energy is coming from the center and going out. As it does that, it's going to affect something on its peripheral. As it creates this energy, this positive energy is being shot out. Well, there is another force that's sucking in. There's a vibration going out and there's a vibration going in. You have to have fuel inside of it, and then it burns the fuel, and then it turns into energy. E equals mc squared is basically saying that energy is transformed into matter, and the matter is transformed into energy. So there's only one thing in the universe. That's why we say there really isn't any time and space, because time and space is just the material part. The material part is just an illusion or a temporary mode or vibration of that one constant, which is light. So if you take the light, which is pure, and you slow it down at all because of some other object. You got another object acting upon it, another force. Now, these two forces got to create equilibrium. They hit each other, they respond to each other. And as they do that, one takes energy from the other, and one may be giving energy to the other. So, it's kind of like a battery. You have a positive and you have a negative. The negative is that word means not. That's nothing. The lesser. Then you get the positive. Any two dissimilar metals means one is lesser than the other. So the flow of power goes from the powerful to the less powerful. So two dissimilar metals will get a flow of energy. So everything that exists is countered by that which does not exist. So that is the nothing, the negative. And the negative then affects the positive. So every atom works the same way. Inside the nucleus, you have a proton, which is positive. Then the electron that goes around and around it is negative. So the outer is always the negative. The positive is always in the center. So the sun then is positive. It's shining out all around. It's giving. It's positive. It doesn't receive, at least on a scale. It's all relative. We'll talk about that. It does receive, but as far as to us living on the earth, we're the ones receiving. So that's the central energy. The earth and the moon are reflective lights. So we're receiving a lot of energy from the sun. We're in the outer ring of the sun. We're the negative. The not. Because if you keep going out, you're going to reach nothing. So as the light in its purest form goes out further and further, and it is affected by the negative or the not, the nothing, it bends it. It reacts to it. It causes an opposite reaction. And there is a lot of force that's required. The energy has to do something. You can go on and on and on and on, but you get two things that hit together, and now they're going to share each other. There's going to be some equilibrium. The heat and the cold, when they meet, they start a motion, a vortex. That is a law. The opposite reaction is that they mix and they begin to swirl. So on the earth, you got heat that rises, but it doesn't really rise. It's coming from the center of the earth, and it's going out in all directions. But like we said, anything that spins is going to have a little bit of a wobble. So it's not going to be exactly perfectly hot, like 70 degrees all the way around the earth. But due to various factors, there's going to be different temperatures. And those different temperatures are going to react and make swirls and motions. So everything that is lesser, the negative, is going to pull and receive or take from the positive, which is going to be giving. The flow from the two dissimilar metals, or like on a battery, the negative and the positive pole, the flow, the positive is always in the center. The center of the earth is warm because it's moving, because it's energy. And so the purest form of energy is pure light. But as it begins to slow down, it's a different vibration, a lower vibration, and it becomes heat rather than light. Maybe sound, maybe something else, but it's still energy. Now, when you look at sound, you say, well, there's nothing there. Just a vibration. There's no physical thing. Well, sound is just this, it's a vibration, just like light. Light's nothing, right? You can put your hand right through it. But light makes, matter, a lower vibration where it looks hard. Now, what causes it to be hard? How come, if we say it's not really there, but sure looks like it's there, what is it? Well, they've discovered that particles or mass, or because we're going to try to figure out what mass is, see here. So we got to get to this mass and gravity. What is it? Well, particles They form because we give it attention, because we look at it. If we're not looking at it, it's not there. See, our spirit, our mind just goes out in all directions, same speed, goes on and on and on and on, and never will be if it doesn't get acted upon by another force, then it just keeps going. We're just being. But when we start pulling our thoughts into form, that's the outer negative. That's the negative. The flow is from within us to the outside, the material part. From energy to matter, transformed, and then back from matter to energy. You can burn up the matter and turn right back into energy. So this is what we call science, because we're looking at the material universe and trying to figure out how it works. And what we're doing is we're giving formulas about how fast it takes for something to burn up, or how hard something is, or how fast it moves, or, but we're still not understanding what it is and why it is. So that's what we're doing here. That's what we're trying to understand. So Newton said, we've got a formula. We can measure this thing. We're going to call it gravity. Okay. But he didn't explain what is gravity. If you have a force, there's, let's say, heat, as we talked about. And let's say that heat is going from the center of the earth and it's going out. It's expanding out. As it meets a cold spot, it starts a swirl. Equilibrium. The cold is going to be affected by the heat and get more warm. The warmth is going to affect the cold and make it warmer. Well, you could say the same thing about the cold. It's going to affect the warm by making it more cold. So there's going to be an exchange between the two. That which is nothing, that we conceive of as nothing, is just a concept, just like something is a concept. Neither one of them exists. There's no such thing as nothing. And yet negative influences the positive. How is that? If it's nothing, how does it influence it? It's a concept. Your mind can't understand anything without some sort of opposite reaction. Some sort of, like, I see that's blue. Why? Well, because it's not red and it's not yellow. So we're going to call that blue. This one's blue, that one's red, this one's yellow. Oh, that's hard. Why do you say it's hard? Well, because over here, this is soft. So this is soft because it's not hard. And that's hard because it's not soft. So this is something because it's not nothing. In our mind, we're thinking, okay, this is something. Well, the something and the nothing have got to be understood. You have to have consciousness. You have to be aware of it. It's all about consciousness. And that's everything in the universe, just how you conceive, what you believe. You live inside your own thoughts. That's it. So the light, that constant, is just your being. In order to get that being to create a thought, a thought form, you have to have desire. You have to have will. So this is the other force. The other force is pulling. So you've got the taking and the giving. As we said, the sun is always giving light. The earth and the moon's always receiving it, reflecting. So we're not the positive. We're the negative. We're the material. We're the ones that's creating the mass. So how does mass form? What is the law? Newton and Einstein said that it had mass, and they could measure how quickly it formed mass, but they didn't know what mass was. Why is there a force called gravity making mass? Well, it's simply because, remember now, a big round ball that's the same size of another big round ball, yet one of them's heavier. They're the same size, but one of them's heavier because one has more mass. Now, how could that be? Well, the force, that vortex that we talked about, that hurricane, imagine a Cat 5 hurricane. Well, it's got more force, doesn't it, than a Cat 3 or a Cat 2 or Cat 1, Category 1. A Category 1, just a bunch of wind, maybe 50, 60 mile an hour. I don't know how fast they are. Category 2 is maybe, 80, whatever. But you get Cat 5 and it's, 200 mile an hour winds. Now it's going to take down every tree and house and just blow it and suck it up. It's got a lot more force. Well, if it's got more force, it's going to be probably bigger, more massive. But most of all, the force is stronger. So it's going to be all the particles or all the mass is going to be all in the center because it's stronger. It's pulling it more. It's like a magnet that's stronger than another magnet. Why? Well, inside of a magnet is a lot of little hurricanes. Each atom is a little hurricane. And if each one of those little hurricanes are charged with more charge, they're stronger. Because you see, inside of an atom, you got a neutron and a proton. The proton is positive energy. The neutron is just neutral. The neutron gets charged when you have more electrons going around it, or a negative. When you get the flow, boy, you can charge it. It can make more mass because it's more charge. So what I'm telling you is that mass is simply that there's more charge. Because remember, there's no physical unless you look at it. It's just a vibration. But that vibration is a stronger pull on the forms, which are thought forms. They're not physical. In other words, the vibration is a slower, goes up and down, a big arc, rather than a real fine, higher vibration, like light or, something like that. Sound is a higher vibration, but mass is a very low vibration. So it's charged with a bunch of energy. You can't get your hand through it because there's so much force pulling you away, pushing you back. You try to put your hand into the center of this hurricane, you might get your hand chopped off, because there's a lot of force in there. Well, there's a lot of factors going on with this hurricane. We talked about centrifugal force. Now, that's a law, right? If you swing something at a certain speed in a direction, then all of the water at the bottom of a bucket or anything you've got, your hand, the blood in your arm will gravitate to the end of your hand. You're swinging around and around because anything that's not attached to the center is going to go out. It's going to be with centrifugal force. The force causes it to go towards the outside. Well, hurricanes has some of that, but it's got another force. It's sucking from the bottom and it's pushing stuff out at the top. It's also got a force of circle. It's spinning. And all of these forces are due to this heat meeting the cold. The positive meeting the negative. And so a hurricane forms a shape. The shape is what is gravity, because in other words, it's pulling, it's mass, it's forming a shape. So what is gravity? It's simply the force that's holding everything together in this shape. And you're part of the earth, so you're part of the shape. Now, you're not actually attached to it. You're like buzzing little static electricity. You can buzz around at the top like static. A tree is only connected to the earth because it has roots. So it can't blow away very well. But your roots are more of something you can't see. You're like held on by a cord. Like a flower is held on by a long stem and it can blow in the breeze. Well, you've got a very long stem. But you are grounded to the earth, to the material world. It's still, just because you can go all around the earth and round and round and round doesn't mean that you're not grounded to the earth. All these principles work together perfectly, and they all can be explained. So gravity is what's making mass. If it's stronger gravity, you have more mass. You're pulling more into the center, and it gets heavier and heavier. The charge gets stronger and stronger. Just like a hurricane that gets stronger and stronger. But at the same time that it's pulling everything into the mass, it's also shooting stuff out the top, and there's another vibration going out and pushing out like centrifugal force. So I see we're getting around 50 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to get deeper into a lot of these other little thoughts that came to my mind. We're going to have to sort of tie up a couple of loose ends here to, verify some of the things we've already been talking about. I don't want to get into anything else now, like, that any other particular law of, Newtonian physics or, get out away from just the stuff that we've been already talking about. Let's tie up the loose ends here. So, gravity is a force. It's a vortex that is a force that's caused from the negative and the positive. Now, all positive is really the same. There's just different vibrations. Light and heat is the same. It's just light is real higher vibration, and heat is when it slows down. When it gets really slow, it's matter. You start taking matter like you put it in a microwave and it starts vibrating it faster and start to melt. It starts to become heat again. And if you did it high enough if you vibrated it fast enough, it would turn into light. You would transform back into energy. There's nothing there anymore. It's not physical. The forms are just this strong gravitational pull, a force that causes a certain point to where you can't cross that barrier with your hand. You reach out and you can touch it, but it's not there. It's just a force. So that's what gravity is. It's a force pulling in the form of the earth. And it's important that we understand this because we have to understand that God is a positive force. He's always giving. And he's a creator. And we have to understand that we have a spirit, a divine being within us, the Christ within us, that's very positive and is always giving. Whatsoever you ask, you shall receive. It always works. If you're spiritual, it always works. If you're doing it in the name of Christ, but your flesh cannot do it, it's then totally the opposite. If you're working with the flesh, the anger, the fear, hate, then you can't pull anything in you want, because what you're doing is you're taking. When you're taking, what you're doing is you're dying. You're becoming more and more physical, material. Like the earth is mass. You're becoming mass, material, materialistic. You're thinking thoughts that are carnal thoughts. What are they? Fear, hate, jealousy. That God who is jealous, he's the God of the beneath, the ego. And he forms material things, darkness and light. So if you're going to follow the law of Moses, it's good and it's holy and it works. Oh, buddy, it works, right? If you go out there and poke somebody's eye out, they got a right to poke yours out. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You can take and take and take and take and take and take. But there has to be an opposite reaction. Who are you taking from? You're depleting your own energy. Because you're just taking and getting more material. You're lowering your vibration. You give, and now you've got the same thing going on. You're still you, but now it's a higher vibration. And it is a giving. And as you give, you receive. It's an ebb and flow. So as the minute you start giving in any situation, you start loving, giving, kindness, gentleness, all of these positive things, forgiveness. It doesn't mean you have to actually go out and give somebody a coat. Well, that's important to give people things when they're hungry or they need clothing or, they're sick. In fact, Jesus said, this is what I want you to do. Because we are Christians, because we're spiritual. That's what spiritual things do, is they give, give, give. You can't heal unless you are a healer, unless you're spiritual. If you try to do it in the flesh, you're not going to heal anybody. You're just taken. The flesh is saying, I want, right? It's a sexual hatred, evil, sucking, need, want, desire for me, material. And so you're draining yourself of the charge of the spiritual light. And you're charging your physical and making yourself more massive, material. But it's a different kind of energy. It means that you're now weighted down with so much sin, so much anger and hate. You're good at taking. You're the strongest brute. You can take anybody's woman. You can take anybody's money. The problem is that you take their food and you eat it and it's over. And now you're hungry again. You're not a central light giving positive energy and always having, as you give, you are receiving. So it's like with a battery. You take the negative cable off, and you might have a lot of charge in that battery, but you can't do anything with it unless you make sure it's grounded, make sure it's negative. You got to have the positive and the negative pole, the two dissimilar poles to make a flow. You can go in either direction. You can get rid of all your energy, or you can receive energy. When you're receiving energy, you've got to be giving. It's got to be a flow. In order to give, you've got to receive as well. But you're not taking it. It's a positive energy. It's a flow from the center of your being outward. Now you're a central sun, a light that shines and gives light to the world. And now these lower forms are receiving part of your light, and you're giving them life. That power within you. Can you imagine how powerful you are? See, an animal doesn't have that amount of love inside of them. They can't do it. And I'm not saying that little dogs aren't loving and cuddly and cute and all of that, but they have the animal instinctual nature. A cat will run down and kill a mouse, and she's bloodthirsty, and she's operating on the instinctual nature. That's what that is. And she'll take care of herself for a little while, and then she'll die and reincarnate and transmigrate until she gets strong enough and becomes her own central sun, or becomes a human to where she can start giving, start thinking with logic, making choices, and not just being controlled. And as she begins to think her own thoughts and start caring about there are other beings around her and their welfare, now she becomes a central sun. She begins to shine and give. And she gives out this energy that's coming from the energy within her. That powerful source of her own being. There is no limit to that power that's within you. The Christ, the God power. The divine power, which is inside the temple in the most holy. The Shekinah glory. If you tap into that power, that source, it's endless. You can give light to everyone around you. And they will always be coming to bask in your light, to receive some of your love. They need your forgiveness. You are God to them. Not an angry God, but you're the God of light. Ye are gods, the scripture cannot be broken. But you're not acting like a God, not like the God of light, if you're always taking and full of wrath and vengeance, and you want, I will not pardon your sins to the third and the fourth generation. I am an angry God, and I am jealous, and you will do what I say. That's not going to get you a spiritual nature of peace and happiness. It's going to be a very low vibration of anger and fear. As soon as you're in that lower vibration, you're not creating the things you want. You're reacting to things. Fear is reactive and it's full of torment. So the earth is not as, it doesn't have the higher vibration that the sun has. The sun is the top. The whole solar system is like your body. The sun is the brain, the power up here in the height. The center. The sun is the center, where your brain is the center, really. The most holy. And down here at the bottom, where the sexual organs are, or down at the base of your spine, that is Malkuth, or the kingdom, or the material kingdom, the physical. And that's where all the sexual desires, the fears, and the reaction, and the sea, that's the bottomless pit where all the monsters are, the deceptions. The monsters are coming up out of the sea. You got to put them in the bottomless pit and turn the key, and don't listen to them. Don't be a part of the world. Don't, pass over from death to life, so that you're not using that brain anymore, that carnal nature. You got to use that spiritual nature. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go at that point. I hope we explained a little bit about what gravity is and Newtonian physics. It's amazing to me because the scientific world, they keep talking about these laws of gravity and stuff like that. And there's not even, up to now, science hasn't even given us any law of gravity. And it took us to do this, to put this down very clearly and explain this force and where it comes from. They don't understand why atoms go round and round. Now, they've learned a lot. They understand that quantum physics now is explaining that the material universe is very, it's just energy. It's not real. It's not physical. Time and space is an illusion. They know that. But what they don't seem to understand is how to explain the force of gravity. And they haven't been able to put all of that science that they're working on into a workable philosophy that's actually going to better mankind, so that we can become like God, so that we can be the masters of our universe. We can master these principles. They're not even thinking about that. For them, it's just, we know how to do this. We can make another bomb and destroy everybody. Well, yeah, you can manipulate the physical, with math and stuff. We've been concentrating on math and science in that sense for a long time, and it's not getting us anywhere. We made motors now. We can sell you electricity. But what would be better is to teach people that you're full of energy. The earth is full of energy, and it's free all around you. If you understand what it is, it's a flow, and how to get the flow going. You can not only do it with two dissimilar metals by pounding them into the ground. You can get a volt of electricity right out of the ground anywhere you're at, anywhere in the world, with two, copper and an aluminum pipe tapped into the ground. Get a voltmeter and measure it. It's a volt of electricity. You say, well, that's not enough. I need 110. Well, your house only has 110 coming in, and your television requires 35, 50, 70,000 volts. The old tube televisions. Or how about your microwave? It requires about 50,000 volts. So you're plugging it into 110. How do you get 50,000? Well, it's called a transformer. And so all the electricity is going all around the world, and the electric lines is thousands of volts. They got to use a transformer to drop it down to 110 to get into your house. And then they go along for miles and miles along the electric lines, and it dissipates and it gets down too low, and then they got to get a transformer and bump it back up. All you need is 1 volt, my friends. And with a transformer, you can make anything you want. That's why if your laptop is 9 volts or whatever, you plug it into 12 volt in your car, or a 110, because it has a transformer. You see, it doesn't matter how many volts. You don't need the electric company, but you need to understand what it is, how it works. Not just for making mechanical things, because it's how your brain works. And it's what's manifesting everything around you in your life. You got to start being positive and understanding what it means to be positive. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go, friends. I hope you guys have a great day. We'll get into this more. I'm a little disappointed in this video because I don't think that I explained everything the way I wanted to. Came out a little differently. But that's okay, because this is just another video that helps us get to a place where we can understand it. Maybe in the next video, we'll work on a couple of other points and we'll really get this down. Anyway, this is David Vos. I'm going to go ahead and go. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.